everything you do to launch a franchise is checklist driven, or at least HomeStretch is. And I'm sure you're the franchise expert. I'm sure they're all the same. And I remember going through the process. I remember you texted me one day. You're like, "Hey man, thanks for going through the process."
I'm here with Ian Ouellette with HomeStretch Charleston. Ian, thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to have you here, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, and you've recently invested into HomeStretch here in Charleston. So if you could just share with people a little bit about your backstory, and then maybe a little bit about what HomeStretch does.
Yeah, so Chuck, thanks for having me on today. It's pretty cool. This has all come full circle with Drew Harris introducing us. I actually did some Google research on you and found your podcast. And so it's pretty cool. The first podcast that I listened to was about HomeStretch with Derek and Nick, the incredible founders of HomeStretch. So it's pretty cool that this has come full circle. Now I'm here on your podcast talking about HomeStretch.
What was it with Derek and Nick on my podcast that really intrigued you? What was the thing that you're like, okay, I think this might be something?
Yeah. So first of all, those guys are, they're super sharp. I mean, they know what they're doing. They came up with a great business idea, great business plan with HomeStretch. It's kind of a new space, home preparation. I had never heard of it myself. And then Derek talked about scaling the business, right? And then doing something that's fun and exciting, transforming homes. So that really stuck with me, and I was really excited when it was when we sat down together the first time. The first company that you presented was HomeStretch. So I was like, I've heard of it, listened to it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so, it sounded super exciting.
I think if I remember correctly, whenever we were talking at the coffee, you were starting to look at a dumpster business.
I was, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so started looking at a trash business. It was something that my dad was, he was in the trash business for many years. I knew it was a lucrative business, but when you presented HomeStretch, it had definitely lower barrier to entry. Trash business, you need to have $1 million plus in capital to start up. HomeStretch, you don't need as much capital. And then the ceiling, was just as high with HomeStretch, so it just made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think you had also considered a window cleaning business.
I did, yeah.
Yep. And so, but ultimately, I kind of think your heart was with HomeStretch the whole way.
It was, yeah. Yeah, so you introduced me to a window cleaning business and HomeStretch. Both great cultures, which really stood out to me. Great founders. And so I love the way that both companies were being run. And so, but HomeStretch, it really stood out to me because, a few reasons. Number one, the founders, obviously great. They have a great team at headquarters. And then we get to do something that's fun, right? And we get to give back to the community in a way that's really fun, where we can go in and transform homes within 2 weeks. HomeStretch is a win-win-win for the realtors, for our clients, and for us. So it was something that was just, it sounded fun and exciting. And that's why we, dove into HomeStretch. And that's why we ultimately selected HomeStretch.
Cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who may be listening to my podcast were in a similar position as you, okay? Where they're like, hey, I'm looking to either change careers or take or shift. So if you could, what was, what kind of led up to this point? So if you could just share with the audience, what was your history before this? What was your background? You had a military background? Is that,
yeah. So born and raised in Maine. I joined the Air Force at 19, coming out of high school. Went to Las Vegas. That was my first duty assignment. And then I ended up here in 2005 at Joint Base Charleston. I worked in logistics, retired as an inspector general, and married, 4 kids. Believe it or not, I have 2 grandchildren. Sadie Mae and Capers.
Really?
I do. Yeah.
You have
I do.
grandchildren?
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
What?
Something that Chuck didn't know about me. They're young. Sadie Mae is only 3 months old, so just born.
Congrats,
but anyway,
man.
yeah, thanks, man.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, so
I would have gotten you a cane.
Yeah, I know. 4 daughters and 2 grandchildren. I don't know why I still have. I should be all gray. Right?
Yeah, right.
So retired from the Air Force in 2021 from right here, Joint Base Charleston. And my wife and I, Lauren and I, my beautiful wife, who I don't know if I mentioned, she's here with me today. We actually started a company here locally in Mount Pleasant called Spoken Word Children's Therapy, where we serve the community through speech and occupational therapy. We have grown that company over the last 11 years. So that's been a really exciting venture. But we've gotten to the point to where I retired. I came on, I was working for Spoken Word, and we kind of grew that. We built out some really good teams and leaders that are now leading that company. And we kind of found ourselves, and I found myself really with some time on my hands, and started looking at different business ventures, looked at the trash company. And that's where Drew Harris introduced me to you. He's like, hey, if you're looking at franchising, I got this, franchise consultant, Chuck Stovall. And so introduced me to you. I listened to your podcast. And so that's where it all kind of came full circle, where we started looking into franchising. Yeah. And then you introduced me to several franchises. And so, that's where we're at today.
So, from military to business owner, what was it? A lot of people from the military end up in business ownership, and particularly franchising.
Yeah.
And like I think there's just something like wired of like following a process and being able to do this. And so what lessons have you learned from the military that you've been able to translate, not to just HomeStretch, but even your other businesses?
Yeah. So the translation is pretty seamless, because the military is very checklist driven. Everything we do requires a checklist. And everything you do to launch a franchise is checklist driven, or at least HomeStretch is. And I'm sure you're the franchise expert. I'm sure they're all the same. And I remember going through the process. I remember you texted me one day and you're like, hey man, thanks for going through the process. The way that everybody should go through the process.
Right.
It's kind of a checklist that you should go through. Take your time. But once you buy in, there's a playlist, right? And so stick to the playlist just like we would, in the Air Force, which is what I retired from. And so, the translation was pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Following orders, you're a business owner, you own the business, but they have a playlist, right? And stick to that and you'll be successful.
So I mean, like, I try to reach out to the people who actually, there's a lot of people who reach out to me and they say, just give me brands. And then they just kind of, fall away, and they just, they want, give me the candy,
right? Right.
And like, so that's why it's important. I try to tell people, you just got to really take yourself through the process.
Yeah.
And you learned a lot through that process.
I did. I certainly did.
Yeah. And so being able to compare different brands, even if you knew your heart wasn't in it, like you can at least compare and contrast and say, okay, like this is what HomeStretch is doing,
right?
And this is what the other ones are doing. Was that your experience?
Oh yeah, for sure. And we were diving into those, I remember we were looking at 3 different brands, and one you presented, and I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But you said just trust the process, go through it, and you know what? It seemed like a great company. It just wasn't a good fit for us, right?
Yeah.
And so you talked about somebody, you talked about clients just sending you the candy.
Yeah.
And I remember when one of our first discussions, I thought you were going to send me a list of like 500, franchises to go through, and I would say, hey Chuck, these sound cool. But one thing that I really appreciated that you did was you took time to get to know me, right? So you took all my information, what I like, what my background is, and then you matched me up with several franchises that made sense for me and my lifestyle and what I was looking for in a franchise. So I really appreciated that. That's what's really important about finding a franchise consultant, and you're not just, sifting through 500 franchises and you have analysis paralysis for like 2 years. We moved pretty quickly because I think you introduced me to 3 brands that made sense for me. And that's why it was such a hard choice coming down to the end.
No doubt. Right.
So it was great. And going through the process was great.
Yeah. So you're active in the church.
We are. Yeah.
And so like, how has that played into also business ownership? It's Spoken Word and HomeStretch.
Yeah. So we are active members at Lighthouse Church right here in Mount Pleasant. I play on the worship team. I play drums for the worship team. Been doing that for about 12 years. And so actually there's a few members of our church that work for HomeStretch now, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And so, we have people that work. We actually, so just recently we got, some friends from church. We're actually HomeStretching their house. So, so just having those connections in the community. And then eventually being able to give back, right? So our church, once a month, we do an action day in the community where we go out, we help people, put new roofs on, clean out their house, stuff like that. So that's something that HomeStretch really looks forward to getting involved in eventually, because that's what it's all about, right? You own a business not just for yourself, but to give back to the community.
Absolutely.
And that's something that HomeStretch is doing, where we're giving back to the community by improving these homes, making beautiful homes, and improving lives in that way. So yeah, that's been a big part of it.
So I think so. This is going to bring me to my next question here, where I think most people have these are like some fear-driven things of like, how am I going to hire people?
Yeah.
And where am I going to find the business? So let's like tackle one of these. So I think you've hired a couple of people now.
We have.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have.
And did that happen sooner than you thought it would?
It did.
Yeah.
It did. So yeah, no doubt. I mean, buying a business is scary, right? Like, let's not sugarcoat it. You're a business owner. You've owned many businesses. You've bought franchises. It's scary at first. It's not easy. It's a grind. I feel like entrepreneurs and business owners, there's like a missing screw, I feel like, right? Like,
no doubt. Yeah.
Because we don't know what's going to happen. We can, you get the playbook with a franchise and everything like that, but you don't really know. So yeah, going into it, I hired much sooner. I thought that I could kind of, and being a business owner with spoken word, we kind of understood it's hard to be a business owner. But we know to scale and grow, you got to put those pieces in place quickly, right? Yeah. So I knew that I couldn't take on all the work myself. So I knew that I have to hire a project manager, a business developer. And so we did that quicker than I thought. I was kind of handling everything at first, all the hats. I'm out there mowing lawns and, I'm scrubbing bathroom floors with bleach. No joke, like my first job, right? I'm on top of roofs, blowing roofs, blowing leaves off the roof. So just doing all this work, and Derek's calling me up. He's like, hey man, how things going? I'm like, I way underbid this job. I'm out here, cleaning up like 36 bags of leaves. And he's like, you're understanding what it means to be a HomeStretch business owner, and you'll get there, right? He's like, we were all there. So yeah, I hired a project manager pretty quickly. It's actually my son-in-law. So it's kind of an easy fit. He loves the job, he was a good fit for that. And then recently we brought on Michelle Harris, Drew Harris' wife. She's helping us with business development now.
That's great.
So yeah, we hired much quicker than I thought. And we had to do that in order to, scale and for me to work on the business while the business is operating out in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know it's a long answer for that.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, like that's exactly what it should be. It's gonna take, and I tell everybody this, and they don't want to hear it, but like, I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's like, I'm just afraid I'm going to have to work in the business. I'm like, yeah. Well, then this probably isn't going to be a good fit, because like you want to work in the business. Now you know how to bid for the leaf blowing.
Absolutely.
Now you know how to.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. We had a job yesterday that came up. My wife and Michelle, they went and did the consultation. Yeah. And they were like, it's a big landscaping job. And so now I know what to bid for those landscaping jobs. Because I'm not kidding you, Chuck. The first one that we did, it was 36 bags of leaves on James Island.
There you go. Yeah. And it takes you doing it so you know how to hire for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were kind of talking about like how are you going to build your business? Like what is it, what does that look like for you? And what does it look like for the franchisor support on that side? Like how have those things kind of married themselves?
Yeah, so I mean, we get a ton of support from the franchisor. Derek, Nick, Evan, Joe, everybody at headquarters. Those guys are incredible. Great partners. And the fact that I can send Derek or Nick or any of those guys a text, and within 5 minutes, they're calling me, texting me, just with like simple questions, right? Like, hey, what would you do here? Hey, I'm hiring a project manager, and Derek or Nick would say, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about it. Who do you have that you're looking at, hiring as your project manager? Yeah. And this is what you should be looking at in a project manager. That's just an example. Those guys are great. Looking at proposals, hey, I got this proposal. What do you guys think? You might not be charging enough or so. A ton of support from those guys.
Yeah, so really just building the business. So obviously on the proposal side, but like getting referrals, like what does that look like? Or just
So getting referrals, really that's on us, right? I mean, I'm the business owner here in Charleston, so I'm not relying on those guys to get me jobs. And so, but they've given us a playbook of how to get business. And so we focus on really getting all of our leads from realtors. So getting out in the community, shaking hands, meeting realtors, cold calling realtors. We actually just partnered with Ryan from Charleston Real Producers. I don't know if you know Ryan or if you've ever heard of them. Yeah. So Charleston Real Producers is pretty cool. They rank the top 500 realtors in Charleston, And so it's a magazine, and yeah, we're going to be in the magazine as a sponsor. But really, the great thing about Charleston Real Producers is Ryan hosts 18 events a year. And these are typically charity events where we get to give back to the community.
Oh, cool.
And then obviously work alongside of those realtors, to get those jobs. And the important thing is the reason why we focus on partnering with realtors is if we do one job with a realtor who recommended us and we do a great job, obviously they're going to continue to use us, right?
Right.
And so that's something that we found that's really cool is we have worked with several realtors on a few different projects. And so that's the whole idea to build this business in HomeStretch is to build really good lasting relationships with these guys. Whenever they walk into a house and the wallpaper is peeling off the walls, it's filled with junk, they don't know how they're going to sell it, they're going to call HomeStretch.
Yeah, so so let's dive into that a little bit. We've kind of hit the surface on what HomeStretch actually offers.
Yeah.
You're partnering with realtors.
Right.
You're helping people get their house, bring it to, but you've touched a lot of things. Landscaping, you're blowing off roofs.
Yeah.
Just kind of tell us what is it that what type of customer are you looking for, and what kind of services can you bring to them?
Yeah, so HomeStretch offers 5 core services. So we offer home clearouts, painting, flooring, landscaping, and then we come in and we do a deep clean at the end. So if you think about it, those 5 core services are what typically everybody would do when they're preparing their home for sale.
Yeah.
Flooring and paint for walls and ceiling is like 90% of the home. So when we do that, I mean, it looks great, right? It just freshens it up.
Yep.
So who's our client typically? Really anybody, Chuck. I mean, we've worked on, homes that were a couple $100,000 all the way up to, 1.5 million.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get to that $2, $3, $4 million plus range eventually. Yeah. But yeah, we've worked on all kinds of homes, worked with all kinds of clients. One thing that is really unique to HomeStretch that's really exciting that we just rolled out is deferring payments to closing. So if we have a client that maybe they can't afford to make those updates now, prepare their home for sale now, they can just defer the payment until closing. And so it works out really great because they have a fresh, new, great looking listing and they don't have to worry about making payments until they close on their house.
What if they fall in love with their house again, Ian?
So that happens, Chuck.
Yeah.
that has happened. So I would say like 50% of our clients will come back and say, I love what you guys have done. I think we're going to live here. And they're joking, but I always say, no, you have to sell it because your realtor is going to kill me and they're never going to recommend me ever again. So that does come up. It hasn't happened yet to where they actually stay in the house, but yeah.
What are some common things that homeowners who are looking to prepare their house for sale are often overlooked?
Yeah, so I think fresh paint and carpeting. Like a lot of times I'll walk in and they'll say, oh, we think the paint's okay. Can you guys do touch-ups? No, we're not going to do touch-ups because it's not going to look good, right? Like we're going to come in and we're going to try to touch up your walls and it's just not going to look right. So we always explain to them, hey, a fresh coat of paint. And then with the carpets, there's a few stains and they want us to get the stains out. And we recommend new carpet because number one, it's going to look great. Number two, you're going to walk in, it's going to smell like fresh paint. It's going to smell like that fresh new carpet.
Yep.
And so just that, just that psychology behind, hey, this is like a turnkey, new looking listing. Like, the home looks pretty much brand new. So I think those 2 items get overlooked the most. And also it's the biggest bang and return on investment for their dollar.
Right. How can you balance, like you're going into somebody's house, like how do you balance them like wanting to do everything or what's like practical versus impractical? How do you talk them into not doing something or versus doing something?
I love this question, Chuck, because one of the first houses that we did, and we deferred payment. So this particular client wanted to do a lot, and we did a lot. We actually probably did, they were like, hey, we want this done, and we did it all, and it was fine. But we really want to scale back, and we want to say, hey, what is the biggest bang for your buck? And, that particular client, they wanted to do those things, and we met them where they were, and we did what they wanted us to do. But we really try to control that now, especially as an experienced business owner in HomeStretch. I try to control that now and say, hey, let's really try to find where you're going to get the return on your investment, right? We're not going to go in and sell, let's change out every light fixture. Let's put on all new garage doors, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to really figure this out smartly together.
Right.
What are we going to do here? What are we going to do to HomeStretch this house to where you can sell it fast and hopefully make a little bit more money? Yeah. So there is a balance with getting out of control, especially when you defer payment.
Right.
And they're like, hey, let's get all new everything, and in some cases that might be the right thing to do in certain markets, right?
Sure.
There are certain markets in Charleston that will require a higher end, more finishes, and so we just have to understand that balance. And that is something that I have learned from being an early on business owner in HomeStretch.
So I'm a realtor here in Charleston, and my mind is I can do all this. I can go out and help people find a painter. I can help people find these things. Yeah. I don't need a HomeStretch. Yeah. And then and you've even told me stories where it's like, okay, then once they partner with me, they never want to leave. So tell me, if you're talking to a realtor and you're pitching them HomeStretch, what does that pitch sound like?
So I'm going to call him out, Drew Harris, the guy that introduced me to Chuck Stovall. So I asked Drew about HomeStretch, and he's like, man, I don't know. He's like, I do all that myself right now. He's like, I have painters, I have flooring guys, I have landscapers, I have a handyman, and I'm like, okay, all right, well, that's fine. And I went to one of my other friends who's a realtor, good friend of mine. He's like, I think it sounds great. And so we ended up ultimately buying into HomeStretch, and Drew Harris was one of my first big clients. We did a huge deal together where we painted the entire house. Actually, let me back up. So this client, he's a bachelor, threw us the keys to his house, moved to Florida, and the house was filled with just junk. I mean, like mattresses on the floor, stuff everywhere. We cleared all that out, gave it a full fresh paint job, new carpet upstairs. We might have done some other small things. And we did that in 2 weeks. They sold the house. It went on the market. It sold within a day.
Wow.
And the guy got $30,000 more than what he would have if he didn't HomeStretch it. So it was a really cool HomeStretch story. And so Drew Harris, that was our biggest job at the time, our biggest lead at the time. He was so impressed that he's used us since, and I'm sure he'll continue to use us. In fact, he was just awarded the Leadzilla Award for HomeStretch here in Charleston. Just something fun that I'm doing with cool. some realtors. So yeah, once a realtor uses us, and they actually get what HomeStretch can do, one-stop shop, multiple services. They only need to call me, right? So if the painter messes up, if the flooring guy messes up, or they just want to stay on a tight timeline, right? Like we want to get this home turned over in 2 weeks, and they don't have to get a bunch of quotes. They can just call HomeStretch, one-stop shop. It just makes it easy. We like to say we're the easy button for the realtors.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so I'm wrapping this up with two final things. What's your vision for HomeStretch for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So vision for HomeStretch for the next 5 to 10 years. So the next 5 years, we want to grow HomeStretch out from Orangeburg to Edisto, down to up to McClellanville. That's our market area. So I envision, at least 4 project managers. But the biggest thing, Chuck, like I said earlier, 4 project managers managing projects, all over Charleston. We're doing 50 plus projects a month. That's my vision over the next 5 years. And that's where Cincinnati's at right now. They're doing 50 plus projects a month, and we want to get there.
Wow.
But ultimately, Chuck, is we want to, impact the community in a positive way, through HomeStretch, transforming homes, and then being able to give back to the community as well. And then, 10 years, hopefully we can turn this over to a really awesome, owner that wants to come into the Charleston market and has a passion for transforming homes and transforming lives and impacting the community well.
So I'm in your market and I'm looking to get in contact with HomeStretch.
Yeah.
How do people get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, so they can call or text our phone number, 843-557-2240. They can go onto our website, just Google HomeStretch Charleston, and we'll pop up. And then, in fact, you can actually Google HomeStretch Charleston, and then we have a link in there where you can just schedule an appointment with us.
And they get to meet you?
And they get to meet me.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
My pleasure, man.